Okay, so we are going to continue talking about you as the group leaders and really great qualities that you can be developing and remembering, all those fun sorts of things. So we've talked about a couple things. So I just talked a little bit about this not being your group and really being more of a facilitator than having to kind of be a teacher like with a lesson plan. That in mind, there is still a recognition that you are actually the one in charge of your group. So, as much as it's not your group for your own processing or to get people to think a certain way, it is your job to kind of do the following: keep the conversation moving, making sure that we are not getting off on too many bunny trails or tangents. It's your job to not let one person take over the conversation. This can be really tricky. We'll talk in a couple weeks about different types of group members. So really kind of making sure that people get equal talking time. That's a very important part as your role as the group leader. You're also in charge of handling conflict or tension between group members, calling it out, kind of bringing it into the group. Again, your job is to keep the structure of the group without kind of getting caught up into that to-do list of we need to get through these sorts of things. Your job is to guide the conversation. That's done through reflection, confrontation, encouragement, questions, feedback, and empathy. Your job is to ask for other people's feedback. Sometimes that's very specific, and asking a specific group member, what was it like for you to experience what this person was saying? And sometimes it's more general and just kind of turning to the group and saying, who wants to share kind of what came up for them as they heard John just process through this. Your job is to also get non-involved group members to become involved. Sometimes that means you call them out specifically. Hey, Jane, I've noticed that you've been pretty silent in this discussion. Tell me a little bit about what you're thinking. That's your job. Your job is also, and sometimes very importantly, to set ground rules and stick to them. So we've already kind of talked about ground rules a little bit through our text. We'll continue to kind of go back to them. That ground rules would be things like no badgering or bad mouthing, not contacting group members outside of the group, confidentiality. A lot of group members groups will have a covenant that we deal with things in the group so that if there's tension or if there's conflict or there's something that people have questions about, we have the freedom to call it out in the group because it's part of that therapeutic process. So groups, like counseling sessions, are something that you can't always prepare for. So I always like to kind of tell people to have a plan, but hold it really loose. So even with a structured group where you're going to have like a very specific topic or kind of broken up into specific topics for each week, sometimes those groups can go on much needed rabbit trails. So really our job is to kind of gauge that and, keep the group focused and therapeutic, but also making sure that we're talking about what the people need to talk about. Sometimes those are when the most therapeutic moments happen, not because we're necessarily keeping people on the track of our plan, but because people are able to kind of really share what's coming up for them and they have the freedom to share that. It's really okay in groups to use some amount of self-disclosure, but really this is kept to a bare minimum because remember, this group is about 6 to 8 other people, not you. But like we've talked about in other counseling classes, is that sometimes self-disclosure really can help unconnected group members feel connected. It can really help to guide a conversation. It can really help to join with the group so that they understand that you do have a sense of what they're going through. And as a group leader, you are really the one who sets the tone for the group. So people are really kind of mirroring how they see you interacting, how they see you reflecting and encouraging, asking questions and confronting. So it's really important that you're aware of how you're presenting yourself in the group. One thing with that is that, of course, you don't want to be somebody other than you are. Like, you want to be true to yourself, but you also have to make sure that you understand that if you approach a situation or a handling of conflict in one certain way, maybe it's really kind of balls to the wall, like this is how we're doing it, that's likely how other group members are going to deal with conflict. Now, if you handle it a different way, potentially a softer way, those sorts of things, group members will learn that that's the appropriate way that we handle confrontation. So remember that how you present yourself is oftentimes how the group will also come to present themselves. And as much as it's not about you as the group leader being like overly disclosing about himself or herself, you can demonstrate a sense of openness with them that really kind of helps to create that trusting space. So setting a precedence of non-judgment, even if you do or do not agree with some part of what somebody says, or instead just being curious and compassionate and kind, what that does is it really allows the group members to feel safe and accepted and kind of opens up that space for them to share. So it really kind of starts, from the top down. So that's going to kind of do it for our lecture this week in terms of kind of the skills and whatnot that some of the characteristics that effective group members have. We're going to just go over a couple other things in terms of assignments and resources. So of course, we just wanted to mention our groups like I did at the beginning. This is the first week of our groups, which is really, really exciting. So y'all should have that already kind of set for when that's going to take place. Wanted to remind you about the group observation. So this is something that you'll definitely want to start thinking about and lining up if you have not already started doing so already. Remember that this should not be a group that you're currently attending or a member like an Alcoholics Anonymous, divorce care, but rather something different. This should be a different topic than a group you're attending. So what I mean by that is if you're already in a divorce care group, I would really like for you to branch out and not go to just a different divorce care group, because as much as you are an observer of that group, because you're also a participant in another very similar group, it's sometimes more difficult to maintain that objective perspective. So now there is of course a difference if you're going to if you participate in an Alcoholics Anonymous group and you want to go to a Codependence Anonymous group. I know that there's kind of some, back and forth or similarities between the two, but it's a different subject altogether. So like that sort of thing would be okay. Remember to be working on a group plan. This is for your final assignment. So kind of be thinking about the things that you're passionate about, the type of group that you might want to lead, and kind of start looking forward in the syllabus to this actual assignment in order to design your group. Of course, remember that we've got our video questions, we've got our quizzes, we've got our reading. So make sure that you're kind of staying on top of all that stuff. So for next week, and of course this will be in the email also, remember we've got readings from both texts, we've got quizzes and videos, we've got our group discussion board, we've got our group, and then be looking forward to future assignments. Oh, and sorry, also our group reflection paper. So one thing that I really like to do with these videos is be able to give y'all some resources that of course are not required, but you can just kind of put this in your memory bank or in your toolbox or whatever that is, in case at some point down the road, either you want to utilize these yourself or maybe familiarize yourself and use them with potential clients. So I kind of already referenced this before at the beginning of the lecture, and that was really that was in the section that we were talking about. One of the one of the characteristics or qualities of an effective group member was really knowing yourself as the leader. And so I mentioned a couple different personality inventories or profiles, and the one that I wanted to talk about just for a couple minutes is called the Enneagram. ENNEAGRAM, Enneagram. Ennea stands for 9 and gram stands for persons. In this particular personality profile, there are 9 different personality types. I happen to love this one, and it's something actually I'm quite passionate about. I use with a lot of clients. Even if I don't give them the test, it's something that I can kind of mentally make note of, so it helps me really kind of join with them and help them along their way. This is kind of the text, and I know it's backwards for you guys to see that, but this is the text that goes along with with it. This is a description of all the personality types. There's very unique exercises in each section that is designed specifically for each personality type so that the activities would be meaningful. So basically, the reason that I like this personality profile versus like a Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders is really because it offers a lot of space and room and for growth and for health and understanding different things that go on within us when we're under stress, when we're overwhelmed, when we're not in a healthy place. It talks about things to notice and what life looks like in terms of when we're at a healthy space and really growing. It talks a lot about the unique kind of messages that we're searching to fulfill that kind of were very present in our childhood, but that play out in the rest of our lives. I love it because it doesn't put you in a box. And I know with Myers-Briggs, they give you a 4-letter code. So I'm an INFJ. It is great to know that. It's very helpful. There's a lot of information, but a lot of times I don't know what to do with that. Okay, so I'm in INFJ box, and that's all I know. So what I love about the Enneagram is that it doesn't pin you into a box, but it really encourages you to grow and to look at characteristics of all different personality types and work on them and make those flourish in your life. So the book that I showed you is The Wisdom of the Enneagram. It is by Risso and Hudson. They are kind of the two contemporary leaders of Enneagram information. Now, Don Risso has passed away. Russ Hudson is still alive, and he works very closely with a guy named Richard Rohr, who does a lot of work with the Enneagram, but also has several other books. I'm sure some of you are actually very familiar with them. So Hudson and Rohr are also two people that run a lot of workshops and expound a lot on the Enneagram, spirituality within it. Richard Rohr writes the Enneagram perspective from a Christian viewpoint. So there's a lot of great information in both these books. I'm going to go ahead and include the links to both of these books in the email that I send to you, but I'm also going to include a link for a free test that you can take that'll kind of help you decide which type you are. And it can be really exciting to kind of learn that and to take that into perspective and understand some things about your life and maybe give you areas to grow in and things to strive towards. So if y'all have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. You can probably tell I'm pretty passionate about it. It's been a game changer for me. And so that's why I love being able to get those types of resources into your hands. So we will go ahead and end it there for right now. I'm really excited that y'all are in this class. Just think halfway into this week, you'll be halfway done with the class. So time really flies when you're having fun, right? Okay, well, you guys have a wonderful week. I will see you through video lectures in a couple weeks, but I will be interacting with you via email and the discussion boards and all those fun sorts of things. So you guys have a wonderful morning or evening or afternoon whenever you're watching this, and I will talk to you soon.